Welcome back to Yang Daily. I'll be your host, Alex Cheney, bringing you all the Yang news you need to live your life right. Alright, so I lied a little bit about doing general news today. We're having another focused episode, this time on the New York City mayoral race. There have been developments that we all need to be aware of and act on. Time is a factor. Let's dive in. Quick shout out to our Tier 3 patrons, Peter Park, Shay Meehan, and Nathan Stankowski, as well as all our other patrons. You keep us all informed and engaged. If any of you out there want to join these advocates of humanity first and independent journalism, head on over to patreon.com/YangDaily. It would only take a couple of bucks a month from each listener to keep this podcast and community going and growing into the future. Now on to the news. So remember how I said not to get complacent about the mayoral race and that things could still change dramatically? I wish I'd been wrong. Recent polls show that the race has narrowed from a commanding lead for Yang to a neck-and-neck tie between himself and Eric Adams, with Maya Wiley the only other contender late in the game. In one poll, Yang leads Adams by 1% in first choice but loses to him by 4% in the final round, as voters preferring other candidates are favoring Adams. The gaps are within the margin of error, so we can't be sure who's really in the lead, but it's certainly trending in the wrong direction for Yang fast. A recent internal poll from Yang's campaign found similar results, but with Yang edging out a victory. It's hard to say exactly what has caused the change, but incredibly, Yang's unfavorability has grown to be the largest in the field, under a deluge of negative media and infantile attacks from most of the other campaigns. While Adams says crap like stop and frisk was a great policy that we should bring back, and the media essentially ignores it, Yang can take a few seconds to say what his favorite Jay-Z song is, and it's front page news with headlines saying he doesn't know the answer. Adams' unfavorability is much lower than Yang's, despite him having extremely questionable positions and a history of corruption, showing just how little light is being shed on any candidate other than Yang. There are other issues likely moving the needle, crime and policing polls as the most important issue, with the vast majority of voters wanting more police. Though Yang and Adams both support a larger police presence, Adams is generally seen as the tough-on-crime candidate. Even Yang's comments on the Knicks could be important. It's unfortunate but true that many voters are so ignorant of the candidates and/or tribal about sports that his comments on their sports team may be what determine their vote. That is how messy politics is. While Yang's Israel-Palestine comment has gotten the most Twitter attention by far, polls prior to that incident show similar results, so that is not the cause. Other candidates have been united against Yang as the clear frontrunner from the start, leveling broadsides of hostility in his direction, and many media organizations have gleefully assisted. The waves have been inundated with reporting on minor gaffes from Yang, purposely miscontextualized clips and quotes, and outright lies. It seems that ranked choice voting's observed effect on making campaigns more positive may not apply to dominant frontrunners. Some of the candidates have been telling voters not to rank Yang at all. It seems to be working, unfortunately. Of 144 poll participants who disliked Yang, only 13 ranked him at all. So now that Adams is the primary opponent, let's get to know him a bit better. Adams is a pretty shady character when it comes to campaign finance and bribery, enough so to get even Yang riled up. A review by the New York Times of campaign filings, nonprofit filings, lobbying reports, and other records details how Adams pushes and often violates the boundaries of campaign finance and ethics laws. The incident that Andrew has been objecting to regards Adams circumventing the rules of New York City's public donation matching for small donors program. As we've discussed, if you take any matching funds from the city, you are prohibited from accepting donations from corporations and special interest groups. There's a limit on how much money you can raise. You can't take more than $400 from anyone doing business with the city, and it only matches small dollar donations. Adams gets around all of that by promoting himself through a nonprofit, the One Brooklyn Fund. That nonprofit can accept unlimited contributions provided that they certify no more than 10% of the funds are spent on communications for Adams. But Adams circumvents that too by using advertising dollars and taxpayer resources to publicize One Brooklyn's events, its donors, and himself, including through his government website. In all, it has reported taking in at least $2.2 million. In the most egregious case, One Brooklyn has reportedly told its own donors to donate directly to Adams' campaign, where their donations would be matched by city funds. In short, Adams has perverted the public finance system, which is designed to empower common citizens in elections, and is using it to empower the special interest groups that the system was created to combat, as well as give himself an unfair advantage. Sadly, this is not new behavior for Adams, who has been involved in countless conflict of interest and other finance violations throughout his decades-long political career. He forged close ties with lobbyists who registered to influence him for their clients. Two of the lobbyists sit on One Brooklyn's board, and a third was recently hired as a campaign consultant. In several cases, he failed to report that developers and others raised money for him, again allowing him to obtain taxpayer money that he was not entitled to. He changed zoning regulations for a donor, real estate developer Schwartz, against the wishes of the community board to build a tower twice as tall as regulations allowed. In all, Adams has raised $8 million this election, with one-third coming from real estate insiders. He solicited and received donations from entities that sought and were awarded grants from his office's annual $59 million capital fund. The state inspector general found that Adams and other Senate Democrats fraternized with lobbyists and accepted significant campaign contributions before being awarded a contract for lottery machines at a racetrack. Several contenders for the contract were invited to a birthday fundraiser for Adams, and Adams and other senators attended a celebratory dinner at the home of a company lobbyist before the contract was finalized. Ultimately, state officials rescinded the contract, but federal prosecutors did not bring charges. These are just some examples. It goes on, as you can see in the linked article. And Adams' defense against these violations only digs the hole deeper. His office emphasized to investigators that the slip-ups had occurred, but promised to comply with the law going forward. What? Is that how the law works? Apparently so, because no enforcement action was taken. And Adams' personal response was to say, quote, "Black candidates for office are often held to a higher unfair standard," end quote. Wow. A standard like actually following the law? This is not racism, Eric, and saying other people got away with it is not a valid excuse. If anything, authorities let you off the hook for actual crimes you committed, not the opposite. Trying to play this off as racism speaks loudly to your character. He also said, quote, "No contribution has ever affected my decision-making as a public official," end quote. That is an obvious lie. Anyone can tell you that receiving favors from someone affects your judgment about them. It's the whole reason that we have laws against it. In summary, this dude is corrupt AF. Finally, the above is also made clear by Adams having more money despite Yang having 11,000 donors to Adams' 7,000. Yang leads the field in unique donors both in and out of state, and has close to the smallest average amount donated per donor in the race. Yang is funded by the people. Adams is funded by special interests and bribes, and he is laundering the money. He is exactly what we don't need in government. This is about as clear a fight between corruption and progress as you ever see in politics. Please don't let dirty tactics poison our country further. Get out there and volunteer for Yang. Hit the streets or hit the phones. We have 1 month to turn this around and put Yang in a position to do some good and prove the strength of our policies. Let's bring home the win. And that'll do it for today's Yang Daily. Bookmark and share the polls, Adams' corruption, and the donor stats. Flood Congress with calls, tweets, faxes, and letters using the Resist bot or Income Movement easy contacts below. If you need help, consult Humanity Forward, the Income Movement Aid Database, the Mission Asset Fund, or United Way, and don't forget to Yang Daily.